The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers as Maya's voice drifted through the garage door. It was past midnight, and she thought I was asleep upstairs in our cramped rental house on Elm Street. But sleep had become a stranger since she started working late every night at Henderson Marketing. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I can't wait for our weekend getaway, Eli, she whispered into her phone, thinking the sound of my Ford's engine work would mask her conversation. Just you and me at Shiver Lake Resort. No interruptions this time. I froze under the hood, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Maya had told me she was visiting her sick aunt in Cleveland this weekend. Apparently, Aunt Martha had been miraculously cured and replaced by some guy named Eli. I know, baby. We deserve this after all the sneaking around, Maya continued, her voice taking on that breathy quality I used to think was reserved for me. Tom's working another double shift at Murphy's auto shop. He'll never know. Tom. That's me. Thomas Mitchell, 38 years old, hands permanently stained with motor oil, and apparently dumber than a box of rocks, according to my girlfriend of 3 years. Maya Chen. Wait, that's one of those forbidden names. Maya Collins. Maya Collins, who I'd been planning to propose to next month with the ring I'd been making payments on for 6 months. I stayed perfectly still, letting her words wash over me like ice water. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife, but what really twisted in my gut was the casual dismissal in her voice, like I was some kind of background character in her real-life story. The romantic package includes champagne and rose petals, she giggled. God, I feel like a teenager again. When was the last time Tom did anything romantic? He gave me a socket wrench set for my birthday. Actually, it was a very nice socket wrench set, top of the line, but I guess that detail was lost on her. Maya finally hung up and tiptoed back inside, probably thinking she'd pulled off the perfect crime. I waited another 20 minutes before following her upstairs, where I found her pretending to sleep, still clutching her phone. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the water stain on our ceiling that looked like a middle finger. How fitting. My mind raced through every late night, every business dinner, every time she'd pulled away when I tried to kiss her. The signs had been there, bright as neon, but I'd been too trusting or too stupid to see them. As Maya's breathing settled into genuine sleep, I carefully slipped her phone from her fingers. She'd never been good with passwords. It was still my birthday, which felt like another slap in the face. Her text messages with Eli painted a picture that made my stomach churn. 6 months of planning secret meetings, stolen kisses in parking garages, and elaborate lies to cover their tracks. The worst part wasn't even the affair itself. It was how they talked about me. Poor Tom, Eli had written, working his ass off while his girl plays with a real man. Maya's response. He's sweet, but so boring. You make me feel alive again. Sweet, but boring. 3 years of my life reduced to a Hallmark card sentiment. I screenshotted everything, my hands shaking with rage. Then I found the hotel confirmation for Shiver Lake Resort. 2 nights, romantic lakeside suite, champagne package included. Check-in was Friday afternoon, tomorrow. Maya stirred beside me, and I quickly slipped the phone back into her hand. She opened her eyes and smiled that same smile that used to make my day. Morning, baby, she said, stretching like a cat. Sleep well? Like the dead, I replied, and meant it. The Tom who went to sleep last night was gone. Someone else entirely was taking his place. Friday morning arrived gray and drizzling, typical for Shiver Lake in October. Maya bustled around our bedroom, packing her overnight bag with the kind of care she usually reserved for job interviews. She'd even bought new lingerie. I found the Victoria's Secret bag hidden in her car when I went out to check her oil. I should be back Sunday evening, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Aunt Martha is really struggling since Uncle Pete died. Uncle Pete had been dead for 5 years, but I didn't mention that. Drive safe, I said, kissing her forehead. I'll miss you. And I would miss her. I'd miss the woman I thought she was. After Maya left, I called in sick to Murphy's auto shop. Jimmy Murphy owed me about 50 favors, so he didn't ask questions. Then I drove to the Pit, the boxing gym where I'd been working out since high school. Frank Kowalski, the owner, was a gruff ex-middleweight who'd taught me that sometimes you have to take a punch to land one. You look like hell, Frank said when I walked in. Girl troubles? You could say that. I started wrapping my hands. Frank, what would you do if someone you trusted made you look like a fool? Frank spit into his coffee cup, a habit that grossed out everyone but somehow fit him perfectly. Depends. We talking about embarrassing you at a party or something bigger? Bigger. Then you make sure they understand the consequences of their choices. Frank's eyes hardened. But you do it smart. Angry men make mistakes. Smart men make statements. I spent 2 hours beating the hell out of a heavy bag, each punch fueled by another memory of Maya's lies. By the time I was done, my knuckles were raw, but my head was clear. The drive to Shiver Lake Resort took 40 minutes through winding country roads. I'd been there once before, for my cousin's wedding reception. It was the kind of place that charged $50 for a hamburger and called it artisanal beef with locally sourced accompaniments. I parked across the street at a gas station and waited. Sure enough, at 3:47 p.m., Maya's blue Honda Civic pulled into the resort parking lot. She stepped out wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Red, clingy, and definitely not something you'd wear to visit a sick relative. 5 minutes later, a black BMW pulled up beside her. The man who got out was everything I wasn't. Tall, expensive suit, perfectly styled hair that probably cost more than my monthly rent. This had to be Eli. He wrapped Maya in his arms and kissed her like they were the stars of their own romantic movie. I took pictures with my phone, my hands surprisingly steady. Then I drove home to put phase 1 of my plan into motion. Maya had left her laptop open on the kitchen table, still logged into her email and social media accounts. I spent the next 3 hours learning everything about Eli Henderson. Yes, Henderson, as in Henderson Marketing, where Maya worked. He was her boss, married with 2 kids, and apparently made a hobby of sleeping with his employees. I found emails between Maya and her best friend Leah discussing the affair, including detailed plans for this weekend and speculation about when Maya would finally dump boring Tom. Leah had been encouraging the affair from the beginning, even helping Maya pick out lingerie and coaching her on lies to tell me. Some best friend. But the real treasure was Maya's company laptop, which she'd stupidly left logged in to the company server. Henderson Marketing had strict policies about workplace relationships, especially between supervisors and subordinates. Even stricter policies about married executives having affairs. I forwarded everything to my personal email, then started making copies of the most damaging evidence. Photos, emails, text messages, hotel receipts Maya had hidden in her car. By the time I was done, I had enough material to destroy both their careers and Eli's marriage. But that felt too easy, too clean. They wanted to make me look like a fool? Fine. Let's see how they liked being the entertainment. Saturday morning brought the kind of crisp autumn day that usually made me happy to be alive. Not today. I woke up on the couch where I'd spent the night, surrounded by printed emails and photos that told the story of my girlfriend's double life. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Aunt Martha is doing better. Might stay an extra day? Love you. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, take all the time you need. The first call I made was to my daughter Paige. She was 17, lived with her mother in the next town over, and had actually grown close to Maya over the past year. This conversation was going to hurt, but she deserved to know the truth before she heard it from someone else. Dad, it's early for you to call. Hey kiddo, we need to talk. Can you come over this afternoon? Is everything okay? You sound weird. Just come over, Paige. There's something you need to know about Maya. The second call was harder. My brother Jake had never liked Maya. Said she was too good for a grease monkey like me. Turned out he was half right. She thought she was too good for me. I hate to say I told you so, Jake said after I filled him in. But I told you so. That girl had wandering eyes from day one. Thanks for the support. Hey, I'm on your side. What do you need? Just be ready. This is going to get messy. The third call was to Chief Gabe Morrison, my old high school buddy who now ran Shiver Lake's small police department. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to give him a heads up that there might be some drama in his jurisdiction soon. Tom, whatever you're planning, don't do anything stupid, Gabe warned. I've got enough paperwork already. Would I do anything stupid? That's exactly what worries me. Paige arrived around noon, driving the beat-up Corolla I'd helped her buy with money from my savings account. She looked so much like her mother at that age. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and a stubborn streak a mile wide. Okay, Dad. What's the big emergency? She asked, plopping down on the couch. I handed her a folder with some of the tamer evidence. Maya's been cheating on me, with her boss, for 6 months. Paige's face went through about 5 different emotions in 10 seconds. Shock, anger, disappointment, and then something that looked like guilt. Dad, I kind of wondered. She was acting different lately. Always on her phone, dressing up more, but I didn't want to say anything because I thought maybe I was imagining it. You're not imagining anything. She's with him right now, at some fancy resort, while telling me she's taking care of her sick aunt. Paige looked through the papers, her expression growing darker with each page. What a bitch. Sorry, Dad, but what a complete bitch, after everything you did for her. Language, kiddo. No, I'm serious. You helped her get that job. You supported her when she was going through that rough patch with her family. You were planning to propose, weren't you? I nodded, not trusting my voice. I'm going to kill her, Paige said, and I could tell she meant it. No, you're not. But you might want to distance yourself from this situation. It's going to get ugly. Paige stood up, her jaw set in that stubborn way that reminded me of myself. Are you kidding? I'm Team Dad all the way. What do you need me to do? That evening, I drove to Flanagan's Bar, the local watering hole where half of Shiver Lake went to drink away their problems. I wasn't much of a drinker, but I needed to be seen. Needed people to know that Tom Mitchell was having a regular Saturday night while his girlfriend was off screwing her boss. The bar was crowded with the usual suspects, factory workers, retirees, and a few of the younger crowd looking for something to do in a town where the biggest excitement was usually the high school football games. I ordered a beer and struck up conversations with anyone who'd listen. Casual mentions of Maya visiting her sick aunt. Jokes about being a bachelor for the weekend. Just a regular guy having a regular night. Around 10 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. It was a photo of me at the resort yesterday, taken from across the parking lot. The message read, "Saw you watching. Mind your own business or you'll regret it." Someone had been watching me watch them. The game just got more complicated. I finished my beer, said goodnight to the bartender, and walked out to my truck. The parking lot was mostly empty, just a few cars scattered around under the dim streetlights. As I reached for my door handle, footsteps crunched on gravel behind me. Tom Mitchell? I turned around to see a man I didn't recognize, mid-40s, wearing a leather jacket and the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Depends who's asking. Name's Rick. I'm a friend of Eli Henderson's. He asked me to have a word with you. Did he now? I kept my voice level, but my muscles tensed. And what word would that be? The word is back off. Stop following them around, stop taking pictures, and stop sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. I laughed, and it came out darker than I intended. Or what? Rick stepped closer, and I could smell cigarettes and cheap cologne. Or you might find yourself having some very bad luck. Accidents happen, you know, especially to guys who can't take a hint. Is that a threat? It's friendly advice. I looked Rick up and down, taking in the soft belly, the manicured nails, the expensive watch. This wasn't a street fighter. This was some corporate goon trying to intimidate me with movie dialogue. Here's some friendly advice for you, Rick, I said, stepping closer until we were almost nose to nose. I've been working with my hands my whole life. I know how to fix things, and I know how to break them. If you or your buddy Eli think you can scare me off with playground threats, you're about to learn how wrong you are. Rick's confident smile faltered. You don't know who you're messing with. Neither do you. We stared at each other for another few seconds before Rick backed down, muttering something about me being crazy. He got into a gray sedan and drove off, but not before I memorized his license plate number. As I drove home, my mind raced. Maya and Eli weren't just having an affair, they were actively trying to intimidate me into silence. That changed everything. This wasn't just about a cheating girlfriend anymore. This was war. Sunday evening came too soon and not soon enough. Maya's Honda pulled into our driveway at 7:23 p.m., and I watched from the kitchen window as she sat in her car for almost 5 minutes, probably working up the nerve to face me with more lies. She finally came through the front door carrying her overnight bag and wearing the same clothes she'd had on Friday, though they looked rumpled now. Her hair was messier than usual, and she had that satisfied glow that I used to love seeing on her face. "Hey, baby," she said, dropping her bag and coming over to kiss me. "I missed you." I let her kiss me, tasting lies on her lips. "How's Aunt Martha?" "Much better. The doctors think she'll make a full recovery." Maya moved around the kitchen, opening the refrigerator and rummaging through leftovers like she hadn't just spent the weekend in bed with another man. "How was your weekend? Did you do anything fun?" "Just the usual. Worked on the truck, watched some football. Quiet weekend." She nodded, already distracted by her phone, which had been buzzing constantly since she walked in. Probably Eli, wanting to relive their romantic getaway. "Maya," I said, and something in my tone made her look up. "We need to talk." Her face went pale. "About what?" I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photos I'd taken at the resort. Her and Eli kissing in the parking lot. "About your sick Aunt Martha." The blood drained from Maya's face so fast I thought she might faint. She stared at the photo for a long moment, then sank into one of our kitchen chairs. "Tom, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You've gotten pretty good at explanations lately." I sat across from her, keeping my voice calm. 6 months, Maya. 6 months of lies. She started crying then, big crocodile tears that might have worked on me a week ago. It just happened. I never meant for it to go this far. Bullshit. I read your emails. This wasn't some accident. You planned it. You and Leah sat around making fun of me while you figured out how to sneak around behind my back. You went through my emails? Her tears stopped abruptly, replaced by anger. You had no right. I had no right. I laughed, and it came out bitter. You're screwing your married boss, and I'm the one violating trust. Maya stood up, her hands shaking. Yes, I made a mistake, but spying on me, following me around like some kind of stalker, that's not normal, Tom. You want to know what's not normal? Getting threatened in a parking lot by your boyfriend's goon. That stopped her cold. What are you talking about? I told her about Rick and his friendly advice. With each detail, Maya's face grew more horrified. Tom, I swear I don't know anything about that. Eli wouldn't what? Wouldn't cheat on his wife? Wouldn't lie to his employees? Wouldn't send some thug to intimidate the guy whose girlfriend he's been screwing? Maya sank back into her chair. This is all wrong. This isn't how it was supposed to happen. How was it supposed to happen, Maya? Were you planning to tell me eventually, or just keep lying until I figured it out myself? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I want you out, I said quietly. What? I want you out of my house. Tonight. Tom, please, we can work through this. I'll end it with Eli. We can go to counseling. It's too late for that. Maya started crying again, but these tears looked real. Please don't do this. I love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of me. The safe backup plan while you play house with your boss. She tried to argue, tried to negotiate, tried to seduce me. None of it worked. By 10 o'clock, she was loading her stuff into her car while I watched from the porch. Before she drove away, she rolled down her window. This isn't over, Tom. You can't just throw away 3 years because of one mistake. You're right, I said. It's not over. She looked hopeful for a moment. It's just getting started. Monday morning, I called in sick again and drove to Henderson Marketing. The company occupied a sleek glass building in the business district, the kind of place where people wore suits and talked about synergy and paradigm shifts. I didn't go inside. Instead, I sat in my truck across the street and waited. At 11:30, Eli Henderson emerged for what looked like a coffee run. He was even more polished in person, expensive suit, perfect posture, the kind of confident stride that came from never having to wonder if you could make rent. I followed him to a Starbucks 3 blocks away, then got in line behind him. When he turned around with his venti whatever the hell, he nearly dropped it. You must be Tom, he said, recovering quickly. Maya's told me so much about you. I bet she has. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Just like she's told me about you. Eli's perfect composure cracked slightly. Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding is you thinking I'm some kind of pushover. I pulled out my phone and showed him the same photo I'd shown Maya. But we're going to clear that up right now. His face went white. Where did you get that? I took it while you were playing grab-ass in the parking lot. Eli looked around nervously, probably worried about who might overhear us. This is neither the time nor the place. Actually, it's the perfect time and place. See, your wife works just 2 blocks from here at that law firm, doesn't she? Jennifer Henderson, divorce attorney. I bet she'd be very interested in these photos. What do you want? I want you to understand something. You and Maya think you can just steamroll over people's lives without consequences. You send your boy Rick to threaten me, thinking I'll just roll over and play dead. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. I stepped even closer, close enough that he had to look up to meet my eyes. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to end this thing with Maya. You're going to transfer her to a different department or find her a job somewhere else. And you're going to stay the hell away from me and my family. And if I don't? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Then everyone in your life gets to see what kind of man you really are. Eli tried to bluster, tried to threaten me with lawyers and lawsuits. But his heart wasn't in it. He was a predator who preyed on people he thought were weaker than him. When faced with someone willing to fight back, he folded like a cheap suit. This is extortion, he said weakly. This is consequences. I left him standing there with his overpriced coffee and drove to my next stop, Leah's apartment. Leah Martinez lived in one of those trendy loft complexes that charged twice the market rate because they had exposed brick walls and called themselves urban living spaces. I'd been there exactly once, for a housewarming party where she'd spent the entire evening making snide comments about my clothes and job. She answered the door in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, looking like she'd just rolled out of bed despite it being almost noon. Tom, what are you doing here? We need to talk about your role in Maya's little adventure. Leah's face went through the same progression of emotions I'd seen on Maya. Shock, fear, then defiance. I don't know what you're talking about. I pushed past her into the apartment. Cut the crap, Leah. I read the emails. I know you've been coaching Maya on how to lie to me. You're crazy. Maya would never... Maya's been screwing her boss for 6 months, and you've been helping her cover it up. I pulled out my phone and started reading from her own messages. Quote, just tell Tom you're working late again. He's too stupid to figure it out. End quote. Leah sank onto her expensive couch, all the fight going out of her. It wasn't supposed to hurt anyone. Whose idea was it? The affair or just the lying? She didn't answer, but her expression told me everything I needed to know. It was your idea, wasn't it? You pushed Maya into this. She was miserable, Leah exploded. Do you have any idea what it's like watching your best friend waste her life with someone who can't give her what she deserves? And what does she deserve? A married man who cheats on his wife? She deserves someone who can take care of her, someone with ambition, someone who doesn't smell like motor oil and think dinner at Applebee's is fine dining. There it was, the real truth. This wasn't about Maya's happiness. It was about Leah's embarrassment at having a friend who dated beneath her social aspirations. You destroyed a 3-year relationship because you were embarrassed by me. I opened her eyes to what she could have. I laughed, and it came out harsh. What she could have? A guy who cheats on his wife is going to be faithful to her? A boss who preys on his employees is going to respect her? Leah didn't have an answer for that. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to call Maya and tell her this whole thing was a mistake. You're going to encourage her to fix things with Eli's wife, maybe even help her find a new job somewhere far away from both of us. And if I don't? I showed her the screenshots of her messages, the ones where she called me Maya's charity case, and made jokes about my truck and my clothes. Then everyone gets to see what kind of friend you really are. Your coworkers, your family, that guy you've been dating from the gym, everyone. Leah stared at the messages, her face growing redder with each one. You can't do this. Watch me. I left her apartment feeling better than I had in days. 2 down, 1 to go. The Shiver Lake Community Center was packed for the annual Harvest Festival, a small-town tradition that brought together families, local businesses, and anyone looking for an excuse to eat funnel cake and listen to mediocre cover bands. I hadn't planned to attend, but Maya had texted me that morning asking to meet there. She wanted to talk things through and find a way forward. I figured it was worth hearing what she had to say. I found her near the craft booths, wearing a sundress that looked out of place in the October chill. She'd been crying, her eyes were red and puffy, and her makeup couldn't quite hide the damage. Tom, thank God you came. She grabbed my arm like a drowning woman grabbing a life preserver. We need to talk. So talk. Not here. Too many people. She glanced around nervously. Can we go somewhere private? I followed her to a quiet corner near the equipment shed, away from the crowds and noise. Maya turned to face me, and I could see she'd been working up to this conversation for hours. I ended it, she said. I told Eli it was over. Good for you. I also quit my job. I can't work there anymore. Not after everything that's happened. I waited for her to continue. Tom, I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you in ways I can't even begin to apologize for. But I want to make this right. How? We can start over. Move somewhere new, where nobody knows what happened. I'll get a different job. We can go to counseling, whatever it takes. I studied her face, looking for any sign that she understood what she'd done. All I saw was desperation and self-pity. Maya, do you know why I'm angry? Because I cheated on you. That's part of it. But the real reason I'm angry is because you made me into a joke. For 6 months, you and your friends laughed at me behind my back while I worked overtime to save money for an engagement ring. She started crying again. I never laughed at you. I pulled out my phone and showed her Leah's messages. Quote, Poor Tom, working so hard to buy a ring for a woman who's already getting satisfied elsewhere. End quote. Maya's face crumpled. That's not how I felt. That's just Leah being mean. Leah was being mean with your permission. You told her things about our relationship, about our sex life, about my plans to propose. You turned our private moments into entertainment for your friends. I'm sorry. God, Tom, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, Maya. Sorry doesn't give me back the 6 months I spent planning a future with someone who was already planning her exit strategy. She grabbed my hands, her grip desperate. Then what can I do? Tell me what I can do to fix this. Before I could answer, a familiar voice interrupted us. Well, isn't this touching? We turned to see Eli Henderson approaching, flanked by 2 men I didn't recognize. One of them was Rick, my parking lot friend from Saturday night. The other was younger, bigger, and had the kind of build that came from serious gym time. Eli, what are you doing here? Maya stepped protectively in front of me, which might have been sweet if it wasn't 3 days too late. Cleaning up loose ends. Eli's polished facade was gone, replaced by something uglier. Your boyfriend has been making threats, Maya. Harassing me at work, intimidating my friends. That's not acceptable. I told you it was over, Maya said. I quit my job. What more do you want? I want him to understand that actions have consequences. Eli nodded to his companions. Rick here told me about their conversation Saturday night. Apparently Tom thinks he can push people around without repercussions. I stepped around Maya, putting myself between her and the 3 men. You brought back up to a community festival? That's either really smart or really stupid. Smart would have been minding your own business, Rick said, but you had to play detective. The younger guy, let's call him Muscles, cracked his knuckles. Want us to teach him some manners, boss? Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, I was hoping you'd show up. I tapped the screen, and suddenly my voice was playing from the phone's speaker. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to end this thing with Maya. It was my entire conversation with Eli from this morning, recorded on an app I'd downloaded specifically for this purpose. Eli's face went white. You recorded me without consent? That's illegal. Actually, it's not. Illinois is a one-party consent state. As long as one person in the conversation knows it's being recorded, in this case me, it's perfectly legal. I tapped the screen again, and now Leah's voice was coming through. She deserves someone who can take care of her. Someone with ambition. I've been busy today, I said. Lots of interesting conversations. All perfectly legal, all perfectly recorded. Muscles looked confused. Rick looked worried. Eli looked like he was about to have a stroke. Here's the thing, Eli. I'm not some rube you can intimidate with corporate muscle. I'm a guy who fixes things for a living, and right now, you're broken. I held up my phone again. I've got recordings of you admitting to the affair. I've got photos of you and Maya together. I've got evidence of you sending Rick here to threaten me. And in about 30 seconds, I'm going to send all of it to your wife, your boss, and anyone else who might find it interesting. You're bluffing. Try me. We stared at each other for a long moment. Around us, the festival continued. Families laughing, children playing, the smell of cotton candy and fried food mixing with the autumn air. Normal people living normal lives while we played out our little drama in the shadows. Finally, Eli blinked. What do you want? I want you to leave. All 3 of you. Get in your cars and drive away and never contact Maya or me again. And the recordings? Stay private as long as you stay gone. Eli looked like he wanted to argue, but Rick was already backing away. Even Muscles seemed to realize this wasn't going according to plan. This isn't over, Eli said, but his heart wasn't in it. Yeah, it is. They left, walking quickly toward the parking lot like men who suddenly remembered they had somewhere else to be. I watched until their cars disappeared, then turned back to Maya. She was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. How did you know they'd come here? I didn't, but I figured if I pushed hard enough, Eli would do something stupid. Guys like him always do. You planned all this. I planned to protect myself. The rest was just good luck. Maya shook her head slowly. I don't know you anymore. Funny, I was thinking the same thing about you. We stood there in the growing darkness, 2 people who'd shared 3 years and now had nothing left to say to each other. So what happens now? Maya asked. Now you figure out what you want your life to look like without me in it. And you? I looked around at the festival, at the families and couples and kids running around with sticky fingers and bright smiles. Normal people living normal lives. I'm going to get some funnel cake and watch the fireworks. Then I'm going home to my house, where I'm going to sleep in my own bed without wondering who you're texting or where you're really going. Maya started crying again, but I was done being moved by her tears. Goodbye, Maya. I walked away without looking back, heading toward the lights and music and the smell of fried dough. Behind me, I heard her car start and drive away, taking the last 3 years of my life with it. The fireworks started at 9 o'clock, bright explosions of color against the dark sky. I stood with a paper plate of funnel cake, surrounded by strangers who felt more like family than the woman who'd shared my bed for 3 years. My phone buzzed with a text from Paige. Dad, are you okay? I typed back, better than okay, I'm free. And for the first time in months, that was actually true. The end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching,